Can you guys hear me in the back?
Yeah.
Good. I'm going to introduce you to the XLA Institute maturity model, something that we're launching here. So you are part of quite a special moment for us. We have worked with a lot of partner organizations that are premium and founding members of the XLA Institute, and jointly created the XLA Institute maturity model, as Ari talked about. And why? Because you cannot improve what you do not measure. And that goes for your service levels, that goes for your experience and experience levels, but it also goes to when you do experience management, how good are you at it? And how can you get better at it? And that's really what the maturity model is all about. It's your roadmap to get better, and it's your beacon of where you are in your maturity. So we're launching it here and now. It has been in the works for 6 months. It is an incredibly high, dense piece of work created by the industry, for the industry, and for you. We call it the industry maturity model. Not just ours, not just in our ivory tower, for us, cute little stuff. No, this is rooted in a lot of practical ways of working, in a lot of good observable evidence, helping organizations get better and understand what experience management is all about. And the industry is adopting it itself. So all our premium and founding members, partners that are all here around us, you can visit them during the breaks. They too are adopting the maturity model. They're in the process of self-assessing, and we'll work through that with them, and they'll soon get published at a maturity level as a service provider organization. And that's going to be awesome, so that everybody can see how good everybody is. And we can also see who's not part of this community and therefore unable to verify how good they are. So that really helps organizations like yours to make sense of the market and understand who really got this and who does not. But equally, the maturity model is for corporations, enterprises, organizations at large who for themselves would like to get into experience management and XLAs and start with it and figure out, okay, how do I start this and where does this go and how do I get better at it? We know that experience management is not an easy thing to get into. And to get XLA sorted is not always an easy thing to kind of get sorted. And what we've also learned is that it requires actually a lot of different things to kind of get together and work together. And you got to sort of do all these things in parallel so that you can get better in a more sustained manner. And that's really what the maturity model is about. It is sort of giving you that roadmap, telling you the things that you may otherwise forget, and say, okay, well, let's do this little culture thing over here as well, because it might actually sort of hinder you if you don't sort it sort of earlier stages. So the industry is adopting it for itself, and it's subsequently for you to measure your maturity and unlock experience management and experience management road mapping for you just as much as for the industry. And why would you do that? Well, we know that experience is the new currency. We also know that if you do experience management, wanting to get better at it is almost an inevitable reality, because you typically start with thinking about it because you have watermelons, or you know your experience is not good, or you know there's something there that needs improvement. So if you are in search for that improvement, managing that process needs some degree of maturity for yourself. Otherwise, you'll have to make it up, and that's usually not a good approach to things. So as the roadmap sits together and sticks together, it is a been there, done that, proven, and got the T-shirt document or framework, if you like. And therefore, it's anchored in a lot of practical, has proven itself, will work ways of working. And therefore, we know it does, and it creates a proven roadmap that works for organizations. So what is the maturity model? It is a two-dimensional framework, 5 dimensions, each broken down in 3 subdimensions, so on some level 15 subdimensions, against 5 maturity levels. So everything basically gets measured from level 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. Not dissimilar than you would find in typical maturity models in our industry. Let's look at these dimensions, because this is really where this maturity model comes to life. And this maturity model isn't just about technology or digital workplace or end-user compute or the things that are often more close to home in our community here. If you want to do experience management right, you got to get strategy right. So there's a real big thing about strategy, and it starts at a low maturity, so we don't have to be scared that we all have to be strategists, but there's a few sort of principal things that really, for strategy, matter. You got to get culture right. There's a lot of education that we offer that helps you understand how sort of that hangs together, but there's a cultural aspect to experience management that translates into how you ultimately operate as an organization. Again, not sophisticated, you don't have to be a cultural expert, but there are a few principal little things that really matter if you want to do experience management. Design is a pillar of experience management that tends to scare us sometimes, like, oh, that sounds very creative. We all got to be painters. That's not at all what design is. Design is a very industrial craft, actually very applicable to our community. We could all be designers. In fact, you all are designers, you just didn't know it. And because you didn't really follow a very methodological process of how you do design. But in practice, everybody actually is a designer, we just don't really realize it. Once you realize that you are a designer and what that process is like and what maturing of design is, you can actually get infinitely better at what you do. Awesome pillar. There's a lot of good stuff in design. And of course, technology. Without technology, this will not work. There's a big technology component to maturing experience management. And obviously, we have a lot of focus on digital experience, and therefore the technology plays a super critical role, and it's well described in the maturity model. When you get these 4 things right, you will get value. And that value is ultimately what XLAs are all about. It's creating outcomes that you can measure in as much as business imperatives as you can find. And that in its own right is subject to a degree of maturity. You'll be able to do that probably low-key, but as you get more mature, you can get to a place where you can truly measure business outcomes in boardroom language. And that in its own right is something you can mature, and you have to mature over time, and you do in conjunction with the other 4. And that then gets you the maturity model sort of in its fullest form. 5 maturity levels, value as the outcome, measurable business impact as the ultimate outcome, and we coin it turning experience ambition into value. Because that's typically, and that's really what this is about. We find that many people, hopefully yourselves, one of the reasons why you're here is that you have an experience ambition in some way, shape, or form. You want something to be really better. We call that an experience ambition. This thing is designed to make that work. For you to figure out, how do I actually get value out of this ambition? I want this thing to really be better. This will help you turn that wish into an outcome. We understand that experience management and even the maturity model, as clear as it is a roadmap, is its own complex thing that you're going to have to deal with and absorb. And in some way, shape, or form, this is not for the faint of heart. This will require you to get into a degree of theory, methodology, thinking about things like design and culture and technology at a level you may not have done before. And we realize this will get complicated. So what we've done, we've put the maturity model in a larger construct that we call the corporate membership. A membership that not only gives you access to the maturity model, not only access to an assessment with an expert, but access to learning that you can do before you engage with it. because there is a degree of learning that we all are going to have to work through. And the learning that is relevant and necessary to make value of this maturity model is ultimately embedded in this corporate membership. So it is a more comprehensive proposition that makes the access and the use of the maturity model valuable and practical once you absorb that learning. So part of this membership is access to our portal that we've created. Looks like this, Skull Beta. So we look for feedback for those that will engage. There is almost 24 corporations have engaged with us, and they will get in. We're in the process of giving them access. So we'll look for their feedback. We hope more of you will be interested. And one of the reasons you're here is to engage with our maturity model and our learning to get better at experience management. So you will get access to the portal where you subsequently work through this maturity model, the self-assessment, and ultimately get assessed at a particular maturity. As said, the portal gives you access to your learning. On the screen, an example of XLA in a day, which is one of our premium learning modules that actually doesn't take a day, but it does take a good chunk of time. And it is really setting you up for what experience management is all about. But there's a ton more learning badges in this content that you get access to as part of this setup, so that you get better equipped to engage with the maturity model and aim for as high maturity as you can get. But then when you engage with the maturity model, you obviously get the description of the levels, but also the description and expectations of each of these categories, dimensions, if you like, and subdimensions. So if you look here, we have the technology dimension, sources of experience indicators is the subdimension, and if you would engage with that, it gives you the description of what that really means. And for each of those subcategories, subdimensions that you saw on the screen, this rich content is there. It's been verified by the industry. The industry is adapting it and is self-assessing themselves for this too. So this is really a robust piece of work. And I know this is not legible, and I'm not going to attempt you to read it, but what this says for the sources of experience indicators, I've just lifted one example out of the 5 times 3, 15 dimensions times 5 maturity levels. Level 1 for sources of experience indicators, it generally reads as anecdotal. You have anecdotal feedback. If you have anecdotal feedback, at least you got something. So you can qualify for level 1. There's a couple of observable evidence things that matter, but you will probably get to level 1 for this particular category reasonably easily. Level 2 is you actually have robust X data, i.e. a survey or something a little bit more structured that tells you, what the indicator of that particular experience is. At level 3, you have experience and operational or technical data. This is, if you would go through our learning, you would learn quite explicitly what operational data or technical data is. So I'm not going to belabor that for you here and now. But at level 3, you would at least have experience data and one of the other two, and you're combining those, and that creates an insight for you, in your indicator of experience. And at level 4, you have them all three, and this creates a new richness. And it's hard, but when you get there, it will tell you something and it combines an insight that you hadn't done and haven't found before you did so. And at level 5, you combine that with external data. So maybe at level 4, it's your happy signals data for X, your ServiceNow data for O, your Nextink data for T. At level 5, you pull in Glassdoor data. Everybody familiar with Glassdoor? It's like those external portals, or Facebook data, or whatever your company is externally visibly for, creates a new layer of data that you combine with that original data, and it will create an insight that matters and will teach you something that you didn't know prior. Only at level 5, people, so don't get scared. That seems far away, and that's okay. Once you get for the rest of it to level 4, this will become interesting because you've reached sort of that plateau of maturity where sort of enriching further becomes meaningful. So I introduced you to the corporate membership, the vehicle through which we will give access to the maturity model. The corporate membership will give you access to the maturity model and learning all the badges for 20 people. And we think that's on average a good size of group. Even if your team is not that big, training and giving people outside your team access actually highly valuable. If you would see the cultural and strategy maturity aspects, sort of spreading that wealth of understanding is very good for execution. And then, of course, a maturity assessment and an expert review once a year that allows you to understand where you are. And when you do so, you can publish that you are an XLA level N, whatever N is, verified. And for certain organizations that are in the war for talent still, for whom it's hard to retain people, and who Glassdoor really matters for, being a level 4 verified, XLA level 4 verified company is a critical thing because it unlocks for them to be able to show that into the job marketplace and say, hey, this is a great place to work. We're not just on the list of great places to work, we are XLA level 4 verified. And we'll be very proud to see corporations reach level 4. Because as you do, that's really where our success lives in terms of your people working in your organizations having a better working life. If you put all this value together, it costs about €8,000, sorry. I'm from the United States, so my brain is in dollars, forgive me. It will cost $4,950. And to us, this appears to be a very reasonable price compared to the value. And this will be sort of our normal price going forward to get access to the 20 people learning content, 20 people accessing maturity model, and the expert review. And we would love to engage with you and help you through that process. And so will our members, founding and premium members, equally would love to work with you. This is really a community thing and an industry thing. And with that, you want to do questions? Thank you, Ari.
Yeah, if you have any questions about the XLA Institute maturity model, Martin is here all day and he's available. So take advantage of it.
Thank you.
All right.